A mother gorilla stepped out of the wild, carrying her dying infant toward a ranger station. She didn't come to fight. She came to beg. And what happened after would defy everything we thought we knew about the bond between species and the meaning of gratitude itself. The forest at dawn was a living organism, dripping leaves, trembling branches, shafts of sunlight cutting through mist like blades. Ranger Eli Kanza moved quietly along a narrow trail, the earth soft beneath his boots. Every sound here meant something. The hiss of a snake through grass, the snap of a branch under a buffalo's weight, the distant call of hornbills echoing through the canopy. But this sound was different. It wasn't a call. It wasn't even a growl. It was low, broken, almost human. A sob that didn't belong in this world. He stopped. Luma, his partner, halted beside him, scanning the trees. "You hear that?" He nodded, his hand instinctively resting on the rifle strapped to his chest. The cry came again, longer this time, rawer. It reverberated through the forest like an open wound. "That's not a warning call," Luma whispered. Eli was already moving toward it. His body acted before his brain could. He followed the sound through hanging vines and wet earth until they reached a clearing, wide, scorched, and silent. The smell of smoke clung to the air. Empty shell casings gleamed in the mud. Poachers. And there, amid the wreckage of what looked like a small camp, stood something that made Eli freeze. A massive female gorilla knelt beside a small, motionless body. Her arms trembled. Her chest heaved. Her eyes glistened under the weak sunlight filtering through the canopy. When she saw the rangers, she didn't roar. She didn't charge. She looked at them, eyes wide, imploring, and made a sound that shattered every instinct in Eli's body. It was a sound no rulebook could prepare him for. A plea. "Luma," he whispered, voice cracking. "She's asking for help." The infant's small hand twitched once, barely noticeable. Its fur was matted with blood. The wound above its shoulder was black with infection. Luma's voice was barely audible.
"Protocol says no contact."
"She doesn't have time," Eli said, already stepping forward. The gorilla didn't move. Her breathing deepened, but she didn't resist. She watched him, massive and still, the way a mother watches a doctor kneeling beside her child. Eli dropped to his knees. He tore open his field kit, pressing gauze to the wound. Blood soaked through instantly. He muttered under his breath, his hands shaking, his heart beating louder than the insects in the trees. The mother leaned closer, close enough that he could feel her breath on his neck. Warm, wild, thick with the scent of leaves and earth. She didn't attack. She didn't even growl. Instead, she let out a low hum. Deep, vibrating, almost like she was trying to steady him. For a moment, the forest stopped. There was only the sound of his breathing, hers, and the faint rattle of the infant's chest. Then, silence. The baby stopped breathing.
Breathe.
No, no, no. Eli pressed harder, counting compressions under his breath. Come on, stay with me." The mother grunted sharply, the sound catching between anger and despair. She hovered over him, but didn't stop him. Her hand brushed his shoulder, heavy, trembling, deliberate, as if she understood what he was doing. Then, a cough. A weak, wheezing gasp. The baby's chest rose. The sound that came next was unlike anything Eli had ever heard. The mother began to hum again, deeper now, like thunder softened into music. She scooped the baby to her chest and rocked gently. Her lips brushed the tiny head as if counting every breath. Eli fell back in the mud, shaking, his heart tearing itself apart with relief. Luma exhaled a sound that was half laugh, half sob. The gorilla glanced at him again, not as predator or prey, but as something else, something that transcended both. Then she disappeared into the trees, her child cradled against her chest. For hours after, Eli couldn't move. The air felt different, heavier, charged. He could still hear her hum echoing through the jungle long after she was gone. They stayed in the area for 2 days. Niani, that was her name, according to past tracking logs, never left the clearing. She built a nest near the same spot and stayed curled around her baby, who was slowly regaining strength. Eli recorded everything in his journal. He sent a report to headquarters. The reply was cold. Unauthorized contact. Violation of protocol. Report for debrief. He turned the radio off. Every instinct in him said there was something deeper here, that Niani's actions weren't random. She hadn't stumbled into them. She'd sought them out. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. The forest whispered around him. Frogs calling, leaves trembling. Then footsteps. Human. Soft, deliberate. He grabbed his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness and landed on a man. A gaunt figure stood at the edge of the clearing, hands raised, shaking. His clothes were torn camouflage, caked in mud. His eyes darted between them. "Don't shoot," he whispered. "Please. You don't understand." Eli's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" The man swallowed hard. "I was one of them. The poachers." Luma stiffened. "Then you've got about 5 seconds to tell us why we shouldn't." "She followed me," the man blurted. His voice cracked. "Every night since that day. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I see her eyes in the dark." Eli stepped closer, his flashlight trembling. "You're saying she's been following you?" "She brings me things," he said. "My canteen. My coat. She sets them near my fire and leaves. Like she wants me to come back." Eli's heart hammered. "Come back for what?" The man's voice broke. "Forgiveness." He dropped to his knees, sobbing. "I shot the baby. I didn't mean to. She should have killed me. But she didn't. She just looked at me like she knew I was already dead inside." The man surrendered quietly the next morning. His name was Mako. Before they took him away, he looked at Eli with hollow eyes. "Tell her I'm sorry," he said. 2 days later, Mako was found dead in his holding cell. Suicide. When Eli received the report, there was an evidence bag attached, a small metal locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a young woman holding a child. On the back, scratched into the metal, were the words, "To Mako, come home." Eli didn't sleep that night. Before dawn, he returned to the clearing. The forest had begun to reclaim it, ferns sprouting through ash, vines curling over the rusted kins left behind. He crouched near the spot where the baby had lain and pressed the locket into the soil. "You came back," he whispered, not sure who he was talking to. Then he heard it, a rustle behind him. He turned slowly. Niani stood in the mist, her baby clinging to her. They were both alive, healthy. She stepped forward, unafraid. Her gaze was steady, unblinking. She reached down and placed something on the ground between them. A bracelet, red and yellow beads. Eli froze. He knew that bracelet. It belonged to Luma. His voice caught. "Luma." He turned, shouting into the trees. "Luma," but there was no answer. When he looked back, Niani was gone. They found Luma's broken radio near a ravine the next day. Her tracks mingled with gorilla footprints before vanishing entirely. The search lasted 2 weeks. No body, no trace, only silence. Rumors spread. Some said she'd fallen. Others whispered she'd been taken, not in violence, but as one of them. Eli refused to leave. He spent weeks walking the same trails, calling her name. Some nights, when the mist rolled through, he swore he could hear something moving through the trees. Low humming, distant, familiar. It was the same hum Niani had used to soothe her child. He followed it once, deep into the forest, until the trees grew too thick to pass. When he stopped, the humming stopped too. But the feeling, the presence, lingered. He wasn't alone. Months later, a research drone captured footage deep in the reserve. A troop of gorillas moving through a shallow river. At first glance, it was ordinary. A mother, her nearly grown infant, several juveniles. But behind them, something moved upright. Human, barefoot, covered in mud. The figure turned briefly, glancing at the drone. For one split second, the light caught her face. Tangled hair, sun-darkened skin, eyes calm, almost gentle. It was Luma. The drone shook, the image glitched, and then, gone. Officials dismissed it. A local, they said. Lighting distortion. But Eli knew. He watched the footage 100 times, frame by frame. The way Niani walked beside her, their shoulders nearly aligned. The way the young gorilla stayed close to her side like family. He knew. He left the ranger service weeks later. His resignation letter was short. "We used to think empathy was the line that made us human. Maybe it's the bridge that makes us whole." He never returned to Virunga. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, he'd wake to a sound. Low, rhythmic, soft, like breathing filtered through the earth. And he'd swear he could hear 2 voices in that hum. One human, one gorilla. Years passed. The story turned into rumor. Then, into legend. And then, one morning, hikers found a rock deep in the forest, half buried in moss, carved with 3 figures. A woman, a gorilla, and a smaller one between them. No one could explain it. No tools nearby, No campfires, no footprints. The carving was smooth, deliberate, newly cut. When Eli heard about it, he went back one last time. The air smelled the same. Rain, leaves, the hum of unseen life beneath everything. He traced the grooves with his fingertips. The carvings were fresh, still sharp. He smiled through his tears. "You're still here," he whispered. The forest didn't answer. But somewhere in the distance, through the fog and the endless green, came a low, rising hum. Deep, steady, ancient. He closed his eyes. It was the same sound that had started it all. The same plea. The same lullaby. And for the first time in years, Eli felt peace. They said animals and humans lived in separate worlds. But out here, in the stillness of Virunga, where grief met grace and language became unnecessary, that lie had already died. A mother had once crossed a line that wasn't meant to be crossed, to save her child. And later, that same child's song had led another mother home. The forest keeps its secrets, but sometimes, if you listen closely enough, it shares one back. Not through words, not through sound, but through something older, the heartbeat of life itself. And on that morning, as mist curled around the trees and the hum faded into silence, Eli finally understood. No act of compassion is ever forgotten. It only waits, patient as the jungle, to return.